Something big is brewing as this weather pattern continues to build back into place into parts of the United States, and this could come as the jet stream looks to be very active as we go through the next 7 to 10 days. This video has all the details you need to know on the potential for some storms as this active November continues to ramp up, plus a look at when a big cool down could be on the way. Thank you so much for taking time to join me in this video. Let's go ahead and jump right into it by taking a look at the pattern overview with the 15 to 20,000 foot mid-level pattern represented by the European model here as we go into the next several days. Oranges and reds are going to indicate ridging, where we've got the pushing up of the jet stream and some warmer air as a result. Blues indicate a trough or a dip in the jet stream where we've got some cooler air and likely a storm associated with that. And by the time we go into our Thursday, November 7th of 2024, you can already see we're going to have quite a bit of ridging going on across the country. That's not a surprise. That's been the pattern for a long time now, really for the last several weeks. But we're also going to have this little storm kind of trying to cut into it right out of the southwest U.S., and this one's going to be a little bit different than the last few to exit this region in the fact that it's not only going to bring the chance for at least some isolated severe weather and some rain on out into the plains and into points eastward. It's also going to bring some wraparound snowfall, not for most folks, but at least for some areas there in eastern Colorado and northeast New Mexico. I'll briefly touch on that later, but the main impact out of the storm will be some showers and storms as it pushes up against the ridge that's going to be to its east. Warmer than average air really building through parts of the eastern half of the country by the time we go into the early part of this weekend. Meanwhile, we've got that trough now moving into places like Nebraska and Kansas, and on its eastern fringe, where a trough interacts with a ridge, I always say that's where you tend to get some active weather. In this case, we'll probably have the chance for at least some sub-severe, at the minimum, showers and storms from places like Oklahoma curling all the way on up to the upper Midwest Saturday going into our Sunday. That storm quickly moves east throughout the daylight hours of Sunday before making its way into the northeast U.S., Yeah, the northeast U.S. finally getting a storm. There's been some significant drought developing up, especially in the northeastern quadrant of the country for quite a little while now. This will be beneficial for that, but then we're going to see yet another ridge build into place behind it. But whoa, hold on. All of a sudden, we've got a cool shot trying to build right into that ridge. This is one of the stronger troughs we've seen come from the north. And, maybe a month at least. Most storms have been coming out of the southwest U.S. This one actually originating in Canada and kind of coming down to the southeast. You know what that means? We could see a potent cold front some point mid to late next week, especially as models are starting to hone in on this. Heavy rain and then maybe even some cool air behind that front. I'll touch more on that later in the video, so stick around for that. Also make sure after this video you're checking out the Weather Bell trial link below in the description of this video if you want model maps just like the ones I use throughout my content. Also, if you're new to this channel and you want more consistent, accurate, and educational updates in the future, before I continue back into this video, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button, as well as like the video down below. Alright, let's get right back into it now, talking about that near-term storm that's going to come out of the southwest U.S., just like the last few have. Let's get right into that future radar with the European model. You can see as we go to our Thursday, November 7th of 2024 into the afternoon and evening hours, other than some showers and storms possible in places like Georgia and the Carolinas, as we've still got a lingering boundary from our most recent front there, and other than a tropical system that's going to be hurricane downgrading to tropical storm Rafael in the Gulf in the coming days, which should not be a big threat to any Gulf Coast states beyond, as I'm filming this video, Wednesday, where we've got an isolated tornado threat in the Florida Keys. Other than those two things, the other thing I'm watching is this storm that's going to build up late Thursday going into Friday, heading out of the southwest U.S. and into the south central plains. You can see late Thursday going into our Friday, we could see at least some isolated scattered chances for severe weather, maybe even an isolated tornado or two, particularly for western and central Texas, as we're going to have the south to north flow bringing that pretty hefty chance of rain, pushing out of the western parts of states like Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, and into the central parts of those states. In addition to that, with the center of the low being somewhere around the Oklahoma Panhandle, we'll have some wraparound flow back into places like southeast Colorado and into northern New Mexico, where we could pick up over 2 to 3 feet of snow in a very quick period of time as that storm moves through. That is crazy. While this storm looks like it has a lot of oomph right off the bat, it will not have much as it carries itself towards the central plains and towards some parts of places like Iowa, Missouri, and Arkansas into our late Saturday. I wouldn't rule out some isolated severe weather as the storm carries itself east, but overall, the north central plains, the upper Midwest, other parts of the Midwest will just get a quick quarter to half inch of rain in a lot of cases. Heading through our late Saturday into our early Sunday could mess with some college football games in this region. So plan accordingly if you're going to any games in those parts of the country. But overall, those areas clear out by the time we go into our Sunday afternoon. The low will try its best to regain its act, get its act back together as we go towards our Sunday afternoon and evening in places like the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, back down towards maybe even the Mid-South with this front carrying east. But overall, from Michigan to Ohio, down to Tennessee and North Carolina, it's just going to be some honestly beneficial rain, and that's the good news here. pushing east, and maybe an inch or two in a few localized spots. But at this point, Monday afternoon and evening, some rain for parts of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. It will not be much, but it will be something in a place that has been very drought-stricken in recent days. And then, of course, from there's that storm. I hope you'll stick around for all the details on that at the end of the video. I'll talk about that longer-range storm again towards the end. But here we go, taking a look at the total rainfall that's projected out of this near-term storm. It's actually going to bring quite a bit of total precipitation coming out of the eastern parts of Colorado and New Mexico, where it will obviously fall as snow, and then out here towards Kansas, parts of Oklahoma and Texas. You see those reddish and orange shades. That's where we'll have the best chance for 2 to 4 inches of rain, with locally higher totals, maybe upwards of 5 to 6. We can certainly see some brief flooding at the end of this week in those areas, particularly Thursday going into our Friday. Then we see a lot of quarter and half-inch totals indicated by the greens, turning to the darker greens and the blues into parts of the Midwest. But we will have this little streak of heavier rain, just kind of what I was circling here for, say, a day like Sunday in parts of the Ohio Valley, back down towards Tennessee. We could easily pick up a quick inch and a half, 2 inches of rain. Not enough for really much of a flooding risk, but certainly enough to bring some very beneficial rain to drought-stricken areas. Not much eastward from there. Very light totals towards the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, where we will not be seeing very light totals out of this storm. While I don't want to spend more than like 20 seconds on this, we are going to be seeing some crazy snowfall and some briefly gusty winds Thursday into Friday in parts of northern New Mexico and into southeast Colorado. Those pinkish shades indicate over a foot of snow. Then on the eastern parts of those states on the border of Colorado and New Mexico, we have got the potential in those turquoise shades turning to those purplish shades. We could easily see 2 to 4 feet of snow there. That is crazy for an early season event, but you can see why it's all happening as we turn things over to the temperature anomaly graphics for the country as we go through the next 5 days. First of all, notice most of the country warmer than average, the eastern half, just like it has been basically for the last month, 5, 10, 15 degrees above normal. But back here as you go to the southwest U.S., you can see we do have temperatures in these green and bluish shades anywhere from around 15 to even 30 degrees below normal for this time of the year into our Thursday afternoon and evening. And again, it is the contrast of this with the generally warmer air to the east that is going to help this storm kind of exit the southwest U.S., make its way out into the central U.S., and try to bring impacts even further east from there. What really doesn't make its way east, though, is that cool air. Since this storm will be weakening, it will just really kind of move into an area that's warmer than average already and actually help to increase these southerly winds with its counterclockwise flow, so you won't even be able to tell that there is a storm exiting parts of the southwest U.S. and making its way out through Nebraska, places like Iowa, heading out of our late Friday into Saturday and Sunday. I mean, look at this, Sunday in the early morning hours, from the beautiful Minneapolis, Minnesota, all the way down to the beautiful Jackson, Mississippi, all the beautiful cities in between along the Mississippi River. We have just got temperatures 10, 15, 20 degrees above normal. Here we go as we go towards our Sunday and our Monday, more warmer than average air in the eastern and central parts of the U.S., and it will take that longer range storm that I'll be talking about now in just 2 minutes to maybe get rid of the warmer than average air. But let's go ahead and talk about what the next few days are going to look like in terms of their actual temperatures using the daily high and low temps forecasted from the National Digital Forecast Database. First of all, starting with our Thursday, November 7th, 20s and 30s over a lot of the northern and western quadrant of the country. But as we go here to the southeastern quadrant, we are going to be seeing a lot of temperatures in the 60s and 70s. The front I talked about in my last video that was bringing a severe weather outbreak and unfortunately caused some damage and, significant impacts down in the south central plains. That front has weakened, but it is making its way to the east, and out ahead of it, we've got the southerly winds, all those circles indicating record warm lows in the 60s and 70s Thursday morning there. By Thursday afternoon, we'll warm up to the 70s and 80s from places like Arkansas and Tennessee southbound to the Gulf Coast. Meanwhile, though, pushing up against this warmth bubble that a lot of the eastern half of the country will have, we have 20s and 30s, even in the valleys of places like Wyoming, Utah, and then down into the snowy spots that we'll see late this week in Colorado and northern New Mexico. Back to the warmth that you can see pushing even out of those areas with the 70s and 80s, and up here to the Midwest and Great Lakes, we're going to have plenty of 50s and 60s. And believe it or not, temperatures that get near 60 this time of the year are uncommon. We should be more like 50 in a lot of the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Ohio Valley at least. So these are above normal temperatures Thursday afternoon, and we'll continue to see more temperatures just like that, at least for the next 3 to 5 days. Here we go by the time we go into our Friday morning. Lots of 20s and 30s, fairly seasonable, but, a little bit above seasonable in a lot of spots, even still in the Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast. This pocket of cool air really catches my eye, though. This is in that north to south flow overall that's going to be behind that low, trying to make its way out into the central plains. Lots of teens and 20s in places like Colorado and Wyoming in particular. This is going to be that one region that's actually a little bit to even a lot of bit below average for this time of the year, but overall it's these warmer than average temperatures by 5, 10, 15 degrees that continue to dominate even into our Friday afternoon. From Des Moines, Iowa, where we could be near 60, to central Illinois in the Springfield region where we could be near 60, over to Indianapolis, Indiana, to central Ohio, you name it, southeast Pennsylvania and the Philadelphia region. We've got low to mid 60s through pretty much all of these locations Friday afternoon. Saturday morning, not really going to circle anything here. You can see a lot of the coolest air back there into the southwest U.S. We've still got some record-breaking warm temperatures close to the Gulf Coast. And into the afternoon hours, that's also where it'll be the warmest, with 80s even into places like Jackson, Mississippi, Saturday afternoon. And just like we've been seeing Thursday and Friday, 40s, 50s, pushing further north than they should be for this time of the year. Even on up there to the Canadian border in North Dakota and Minnesota, we're going to have some 50s. But I digress from that because it is now time in the last few minutes of our video to talk about the longer range system that even our normally kind of quiet European model is hinting at. Please keep in mind that this is just a model solution. Nothing is set in stone. Other models are bringing different timings, very different scenarios out of the system, but overall you can see a quiet US early on Tuesday will turn more active as a possible low exits the Rockies. It looks weak initially, but then it strengthens up as it pushes towards a place like Minnesota. Heading towards late Tuesday into our early Wednesday, a lot of rain, maybe even some severe weather ramping up from the Central Plains moving towards the Midwest at a very quick rate. There could be multiple low pressure systems associated with this. There could be a very potent cold front associated with this. It is too early to tell. But one big signal, even our ensemble groups, which is just like a collection of models being blended together, they are showing some sort of blip going on around midweek, especially next week into the central U.S. Heading from Wednesday towards Thursday, this particular model takes the storm eastward at a fairly quick rate. It does have a strong cold front with it from Michigan, backing down through Indiana and towards Mississippi, heading out of late Wednesday into our early Thursday. Could this mean some severe weather right out ahead of it through places of the Great Lakes, Midwest Ohio Valley, down to the southeast U.S., some point going out of Wednesday into Thursday? Certainly could, but again, it is way too early for specifics. The dynamics might not come together for the storm to be this strong. There might not be a storm at all. That's how far out we are right now. But one thing I can say for sure is that the models and ensemble members are picking up on a signal that we need to watch, and that was just one example of how it could play out. Here's another example of how it could play out, except in the temperature department using that same model. Notice warmer than average air really building out ahead of the storm. Some points into our Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon could be 20, 30 degrees above normal for this time of the year in the Midwest, back down the Mississippi Valley. But then right behind this, if the storm is as potent as the European model indicates, we will have a big surge of cool air, and that's what will drive our strong cold front. Temperatures could go as much as 10 to 20 degrees below normal for this time of the year, down through the Midwest and Southeast behind the storm. So a lot of details to pick out on that. One thing I can tell you for sure is that I'm going to remain consistent, accurate, and educational with all my forecast updates leading up to that storm, and with anything before that, of course, since we've got that near-term system. I've got all the details for you right here on the channel, and I hope you'll subscribe so you'll catch all the next updates. I'll see you in the next one, probably on Friday afternoon.
One nation weather.